The realm. Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agree to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 breakdown video. In my last two breakdown videos, I talked about some of the big events I think we could see in the first and second episode of the final season, but today I will be talking about one of the biggest events in Game of Thrones history. So far, I have done my best to set the stage for this big event in the north, but as you all know, I'm not a writer, but I did try to make sure I talked about each character and their location, while trying to put them in position for the battle against the Night King. So far, according to all the reports about Game of Thrones Season 8, they have all basically said the same thing about this episode. The big battle against the Night King should be very reminiscent of the Battle of the Bastards, only bigger. Obviously, there is a hell of a lot more at stake, but not only that, most of the main characters will be in Winterfell during this episode, and there will be dragons in this Battle of the Kings in the North. Since the Battle of the Bastards took up nearly that entire episode, I am guessing they will do something very similar with this battle too. We do know they spent over 55 nights filming these scenes, so you can bet your ass this battle will eat up most of the runtime for this episode. It definitely sounds like they spared no expense. Now, I imagine we will get a few quick scenes before the battle begins, but we're probably not going to be bouncing around from Westeros to Essos or anything like that in this episode. I am betting the Night King will arrive within the first 15 to 20 minutes of the episode, then the battle will last until we see the credits. Keep in mind, this episode will be well over 1 hour in length. Most of the episode will involve the Night King, so with that being said, let's begin. In my breakdown so far, I said the opening scene of the first episode will begin in Winterfell with the arrival of Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen. Then in the second episode, the opening scene will take place in King's Landing with the arrival of Euron Greyjoy and the Golden Company. For this episode, the third episode of the season, I want to go back to the north for the opening scene. If you did watch my last video, then you would know by this point in the season, Jaime Lannister already arrived in Winterfell with Bronn and a small army of his own. They were greeted at the gates with some sort of hostility in the last episode, but now we're going to begin the season with a big council meeting in the main dining hall of Winterfell. All of the main characters, including some of the Stark's bannermen, will be in attendance for this meeting. During the scene, Jaime will have to explain himself in front of everyone. In order for Jaime to gain everyone's trust, he will have to be like an open book. He can't hold back any information, no matter how sensitive the topic. After all, Bran Stark can always confirm or deny any story that Jaime tells, so this should be very interesting. For starters, Jaime needs to explain what the hell happened at the Dragon Pit. Cersei agreed to send all of her banners to the north to fight the army of the dead, but Jaime isn't going to be showing up with all of their banners, now is he? He needs to tell them Cersei's true intentions. Euron Greyjoy did not run back to the Iron Islands. He was actually heading to Essos to pick up the Golden Company. This could also be something that Bran Stark could confirm. He can say something along the lines of, "This is true. I saw Euron and the Golden Company arrive in King's Landing." This would obviously cause a big commotion between everyone in the room. We could even hear the Northern Lords start to lash out at Jaime. They might say something like he cannot be trusted, and that he should be killed for all of his past crimes. We might even see Tyrion get very uncomfortable during the scene. After all, Tyrion might know why Cersei decided to lie about sending them help. If you do remember when Tyrion and Cersei last spoke, we never got to see how that scene came to an end. Who knows what else was said behind closed doors? So, when Jaime starts talking about Cersei lying to their faces, try to remember to keep an eye on Tyrion when things get tense. The look on his face might be very telling, but let's continue. During this scene, we're going to see a lot of characters question Jaime's motives, along with some of the things that he has done in the past. Jaime will basically be put on trial, very similar to Littlefinger's final scene, only this one will have a different outcome. Almost everyone knows that Jaime and Cersei had a very close relationship, a relationship that was much closer than just brother and sister. Almost everyone knows that Cersei's children were in fact fathered by Jaime, so how do they know that Jaime isn't lying to them right now? Like I said, I think these are the times that Bran Stark can get involved in the scene. At some point, we're also going to have to get the big revelation about how Bran actually fell from the tower window. Many different people are going to want to kill Jaime Lannister when that gets revealed. I don't know how they're going to do this yet, but in my opinion, Jaime will survive that scene somehow, some way. I just don't see him getting killed this early in the season. I feel like he needs to have at least one more scene with Cersei before she dies. Like I said in some of my previous videos, I believe that Bran Stark will forgive Jaime for what he had done to him. Now everyone else might not forgive him, but I think that Bran ultimately will. Bran most likely believes that becoming the Three-Eyed Raven was his destiny, therefore Jaime might get a pass. Another way I can see the writer saving Jaime during the scene is by shifting everyone's focus to something else. Even if Bran Stark says that he forgives Jaime, we could still hear some of the other characters speak out against him, but Jaime could get saved by the bell. What I mean by that is, near the end of Jaime's questioning, something could happen at Winterfell's gates that causes everyone to shift their focus elsewhere. As Jon, Sansa, and everyone else is standing there wondering what to do with Jaime, this is when some commotion could be heard from outside of the castle. This is when Tormund, Beric, Lord Commander Ed, and the rest of the Night's Watch can arrive at the gate. Now by this time, Jon should already be well aware of what happened at Eastwatch by the Sea, but nonetheless, he might be a little surprised that Tormund and Beric survived that attack. When Tormund and Beric do get there, they can confirm everyone's worst fears. What Bran saw happen at Eastwatch by the Sea is in fact true. The Night King did raise Dany's dragon, and he also raised several giants, and he now has brought the entire army into the north. Maybe they can even bring word that some of the northern castles were attacked nearby. This would send Winterfell into high alert. The castle would obviously go into an absolute frenzy. This is when Bran needs to tell Jon, it's time we go and have a little talk. Let's go to the Godswood where we can have some privacy. Jon needs to learn the truth about who his parents are before the Night King gets there, because there is always that possibility that Jon could die in that battle. Therefore, he needs to know the truth now. This could actually be a really nice cliffhanger for the scene in Winterfell. Then, we can go down to King's Landing and check in on Cersei before all hell breaks loose in the north. By mid-season, there should be well over a foot of snow in King's Landing. We did see some flurries begin to fall in the Season 7 finale, but now that the Night King is getting closer and closer, the conditions should be getting worse throughout most of Westeros. Now, in the first scene with Cersei Lannister, I think this is when we can get her nude scene. In my last video, I talked about one of the reports that came out several months ago, and in that report, it did say that Cersei Lannister's body double was brought back for another nude scene in the final season. Since Cersei may be getting naked next season, I think we might get a scene that indicates Cersei and Euron has taken their relationship one step further by having sex. In my last video, I also talked about why Cersei may need to do something like this. When Cersei and Euron first met, Euron made it very clear what he actually wanted from Cersei. He did not only want an alliance, but he also wanted Cersei by his side and not Jaime's. Cersei did say that she would give Euron everything that his heart desired, after they won the war. However, now that Jaime is gone, Euron might become a little more aggressive with his approach. So far, Euron has went above and beyond to serve Cersei. He not only wiped out some of Dany's allies when he captured the Sand Snakes and Yara Greyjoy, but he also destroyed a big portion of Dany's ships. He did this when he attacked Theon and Yara, and he also did that when he attacked the small fleet Grey Worm used to get to Casterly Rock. Now Euron has set sail once again to pick up the Golden Company, and so far, he hasn't really got anything in return from Cersei. She does keep promising to give him something in return, but she has yet to deliver. Well, Euron may shoot his shot one more time, but this time, Cersei could actually deliver. Cersei may feel like she needs to seduce Euron to ensure that he doesn't leave her like Jaime just did. Cersei not only lost her lover and brother, but she also lost the commander of her army when Jaime left. But she could lose more than that, depending on where Jaime stops on his way to Winterfell. Like I said previously, I highly doubt that Jaime shows up in Winterfell alone. He will most likely gather up as many troops as possible, which in turn makes Cersei's army even smaller. Knowing this, Cersei may think, alright, Euron has proven himself time and time again. As of right now, Euron has been undefeated for Cersei. His ships seem to be damn near unstoppable. Plus, he did just pick up the Golden Company, who he spent an awful lot of time with on those ships. Who knows how close Euron and the commander of the Golden Company became during that time. Cersei might be thinking, if I lose Euron, I could potentially lose everything I have gained thus far. Plus, Tychos from the Iron Bank did hint that Euron might not stay obedient for long. With all of this in mind, Cersei may seduce Euron to keep him happy, and to keep him fighting for her. We might even see her whisper into his ear, after the war is over, I will make you my king. After all, we know that's what Euron really wants, so the scene in King's Landing could show Cersei and Euron laying in bed together. This is when we could see her naked in the bed, or we could see her get out of bed to grab a nightgown or something like that. Maybe there is even a knock at the door, similar to what happened when we last saw Jaime and Cersei in bed together, but this time it could be Qyburn knocking on the door to deliver some news. After Cersei gets dressed and meets Qyburn in the next room, he can tell her about the recent reports coming out of the north. This is when Cersei can learn that the portion of the wall at Eastwatch by the Sea has been breached. Not only that, but the Army of the Dead has already begun wiping out some of the Stark's bannermen, like Houses Umber and Karstark, just to name a few. Then Qyburn can tell her all of the ballistas and wildfire are ready and in position. Afterwards, we might even see an evil smile come across Cersei's face. At this time, it might seem like everything is falling into place for her. The army of the dead are invading the north. They have already started to defeat some of Cersei's enemies, and it's just a matter of time before they reach Winterfell. Then on the flip side, Cersei now has Euron wrapped around her finger, the Golden Company are safely inside of King's Landing, and she has enough wildfire and ballistas to kill 100 dragons and level the entire capital to a pile of ash. But in the meantime, let's quickly head over to Dragonstone to check on Theon Greyjoy. Previously on Game of Thrones, Theon Greyjoy was heading to the Iron Islands in hopes of finding and rescuing his sister. However, we all know that was not where Euron was heading next. As Theon was heading to the Iron Islands, Euron was already in the process of picking up the Golden Company. By the time Theon reached the islands, Euron may have already been on his way back to King's Landing. Even though Theon will not find his sister or uncle at the Iron Islands, that doesn't mean the trip has to be a total loss. Hopefully, for his sake, he is able to recruit some more men along the way, or possibly even find some more ships, even if they are small. With the size of the crew that Theon has right now, the only chance he really has of successfully completing the mission is if he approaches it like the Navy SEALs. Theon's gonna have to wait until nightfall, then silently board Euron's ship the Silence. If he can do this while nearly all of the men are off the ships and in the city of King's Landing, I think he has a really good chance of getting Yara back. Now that is of course assuming that Yara is even there. If Euron had her taken down into the dungeons or the Black Cells, then it would be incredibly difficult for Theon to pull this off without getting spotted by some of the guards. But if Yara is still on the ship, and it's anchored out in Blackwater Bay, Theon can row his little ass boat as close as possible, then he could swim the rest of the way. If he did that at nighttime, no one would see him coming. Then he can slip onto the ship and start cutting people's throats without making a single sound. Now that he has made it back around the coast, he could possibly stop here to regroup, resupply, or begin to devise his plan of attack. With Dragonstone being so close to King's Landing, he should know that's where Euron's ships are located at that time. Now let's go back up to Winterfell where the main event is about to begin. The last scene in Winterfell shortly ended after Beric Dondarrion, Tormund Giantsbane, Dolorous Edd, and the rest of the Night's Watch arrived at the gates. When they got there, they basically confirmed everyone's worst fears. Bran's visions, along with the reports of attacks in the north, are accurate. The Night King did knock down the wall, and he is coming their way next. The scene ended with Bran telling Jon they need to go to the Godswood to speak in private. So let's start off right there, with Bran and Jon in front of the weirwood tree. Obviously, I have no idea how the scene will actually play out, but I imagine when Bran tells Jon the truth about his parents, he will be absolutely shocked, and most likely in disbelief. Bran will need to explain everything. Maybe Bran can even repeat what Ned's last words were to Jon. He could say, "My father promised to tell you about your mother the next time you spoke, but since he is no longer here to do that, allow me to tell you the whole story." If Bran repeated Ned's last words to Jon, this would obviously get Jon's attention because Bran would have had no way of knowing what Ned said to Jon. Remember, Bran was in a coma the day that Jon left Winterfell. Not even Benjen could hear what Ned said to Jon. I think that would be a nice way to set up the emotional conversation. After Bran says that, he can go into the whole story about the tourney at Harrenhal, which Jon should have already heard about, but then Bran can go into the details about how Rhaegar never kidnapped Lyanna, and how they were actually in love, and even got married before Jon was born. Now if I put myself in Jon's shoes, I can only imagine how confusing this must seem. The whole time he thought Ned was his father, but once it does start to sink in, Jon should begin to understand why Ned kept his mother a secret for so long. The fact that he never heard Ned say anything bad about Rhaegar should be a big indication that this could be true. Think about it like this. If Rhaegar truly did kidnap and rape Lyanna, at some point over the years of Jon living in Winterfell, he would have heard Ned say some pretty nasty things about Rhaegar, but it's pretty clear that never happened. Ned knew that Rhaegar wasn't guilty of those crimes, and we even got a glimpse of this when Ned and Robert were having a conversation about this very topic.
And we're not speaking of this.
Oh, it's unspeakable to you? What her father did to your family, that was unspeakable.
What Rhaegar Targaryen did to your sister, the woman I loved.
I'll kill every Targaryen I get my hands on.
You can't get your hands on this one, can you?
Robert couldn't quite understand why Ned wasn't so angry about what Rhaegar had done to his sister, but Ned just kind of brushed it off because he knew that Robert had no idea what really happened, nor could he ever reveal that information to him at any time. So, speaking of Jon, Once he gets past that initial phase of being in denial, he should start to put all the pieces together in his head, and come to the realization that he truly is the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna. Jon will also come to realize that this means he is related to Daenerys Targaryen. Then another ton of bricks will hit him when he remembers that she is pregnant with his child. I mean, holy shit. Imagine having all that weighing on you right as you're about to try to save the realm from extinction. Since Bran is already out here at the weirwood tree, he might even go inside of the weirwood net one more time before the Night King gets there. At some point during the season, they need to find out why the Night King chose to come back and attack now, and I'm also hoping they can find out exactly who he is. As I'm sure most of you know, I tend to believe that he is a member of House Stark, quite possibly one of the founding members of the ancient house. After Bran does come out of this vision with all the new information, this is when the Night King should arrive at Winterfell, before Bran even has time to explain everything to everyone. The arrival of the Night King would obviously send the entire castle into a panic. All of the men would begin to scramble to get into position. This is also when we should get a good look at what type of weapons they have been making out of all that dragonglass. I'm hoping that Gendry has a brand new warhammer made out of dragonglass, and Grey Worm and the rest of the Unsullied should all have dragonglass spears. Anyone using bow and arrows should have arrow tips made out of dragonglass as well. I also think that we could see Samwell Tarly give Heartsbane to another character to use during the battle. I think that Sam will stay close to Bran, Gilly, and the baby, therefore he can allow a more experienced swordsman to carry that Valyrian steel sword into battle. And once again, as I've said before, I believe that character can be Ser Jorah Mormont. Sam can even make a comment about how it was his father's sword, but his father never truly cared for him or even loved him at all. Then he can remind Jorah of how it was his father, Jeor Mormont, Lord Commander of Castle Black, who did care for Sam in some way. When you combine that with the fact that Sam and Jorah are already friends, I think it would make sense if Sam did allow him to use the sword. Now, when it comes to the big main event against the Night King, I'm not going to try to sit here and guess every single little detail that could happen during the battle, but what I will try to do is predict all the big death scenes and other things of importance. This battle will most likely take place in complete darkness. This is the long night after all, but I also imagine there will be an incredible amount of snow. There could even be so much snow that it's hard for the horses to move around, and if that's the case, that would certainly take away from the advantage Jon and Dany's army could have. Remember, when it comes to the Night King's army, the only ones who have horses are the White Walkers. We know that most of Dany's Dothraki army is on horseback, which does give them a big advantage. They should be able to cut right through all those whites that are on foot, but it will also be interesting to see how they hold up in the snow, because the Dothraki are not used to fighting in that kind of weather or terrain. Now, when the Night King does get there, the first thing people should notice at Winterfell is a big storm coming in overhead. That typically happens whenever the Night King is coming in full force. He brings the storm after all, and when they notice this, someone will have to sound the alarm, then it's go time. Most of the soldiers should already be set up in camp around the castle already, so they should be able to protect Winterfell from getting overran with whites. However, since the Night King is on a damn dragon, he might be able to strike the castle with his blue flame at will. That is, unless Daenerys and or Jon can hold him off with the other two dragons, without getting them killed in the process. I'm hoping that Bran Stark is able to stay out near the weirwood tree, that way he could try to assist them in any way possible. Perhaps Bran could even go inside of Nymeria and her wolf pack, or try to go inside of the Night King's dragon, or even the Night King himself. By this time, Bran Stark will be at the height of his powers, and what I mean by this is, Bran should be able to outmaneuver the Night King in this episode. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to convey this during the battle, but I'm thinking they will show how powerful Bran is in some way. Up until now, the Night King has been able to stay one step ahead, but now it's Bran's turn to deliver that checkmate. When the battle is underway, it's going to be complete chaos. We will see soldiers literally dropping by the thousands. Not only does Daenerys have two dragons, but the Night King also has a dragon. We should see soldiers on both sides dropping like flies. Unfortunately, we will not only see random characters getting killed in this episode, we are absolutely going to lose some of our beloved characters before the battle comes to an end. I have made a video about this before, but sometime during the battle, we will see Beric Dondarrion give another character the kiss of life to bring them back from the dead. This is something that Beric does do in the books, although they haven't revealed this yet in the television show, but I believe they were saving it for the big battle. There has to be a very good reason why they kept Beric Dondarrion alive for so long. He should have died at the very end of the 3rd season, or at the latest, he should have died at the beginning of the 4th season. After they went and captured the White, Beric said one last thing to the Hound before they parted ways.
We'll meet again, Clegane.
Fucking hope not.
Beric told the Hound that they would see each other again, and I think this is one of many clues that Beric will actually give the Hound the kiss of life. Keep in mind that Beric has had a connection to the Clegane brothers ever since the very first season of the show. Ned Stark actually ordered Beric to go and kill the Mountain, but the Mountain ended up killing him instead. Then Beric was killed again by the Hound. Both of the Clegane brothers killed him, but in a crazy turn of events, Beric will actually save the Hound's life. Then the Hound will eventually go on to kill his brother, Gregor Clegane. So in a crazy roundabout way, Beric is going to kill the Mountain, just like Ned had ordered him to do, only Beric will kill him by saving his brother, the Hound. I know this might sound ridiculous to some of you, but go watch my video about Beric and the Kiss of Life, then maybe it will make more sense. Sandor Clegane will die during this battle, but Beric will give him his own life to bring him back. Other characters that I think will die during the battle are Lord Commander Ed, Tormund Giantsbane, Grey Worm, Jon Royce, Lord Glover, and maybe even Jorah Mormont. I could easily see Jorah Mormont sacrificing his own life to save Daenerys, if it does come to that. He has said many times that he would die for Daenerys, so maybe he actually does. Now we will definitely lose some more main characters before the show comes to an end, but they have some other purposes to fulfill before that happens, in my opinion. Another big moment during the episode should be the arrival of Melisandre and the Fiery Hand. When Melisandre gets there, she will sway the battle in a big way. When the Fiery Hand enters the battle, this should look pretty awesome. The Night King's entire army has sort of an icy blue look to them, but the Fiery Hand will have a fire red look to them. This will truly be a battle of ice versus fire. We will see red flames and blue flames light up the night sky, then we will see soldiers of ice and soldiers of fire fighting on the ground. It should look pretty damn cool to see. Once the numbers from both sides start to dwindle, this is when we need to somehow get the Night King off of that damn dragon. We've had one too many stare downs between Jon Snow and the Night King for us not to see them battle it out on the ground. 1 versus 1 in a sword fight till the death. Now, how they get the Night King off of the dragon is anyone's guess. Maybe Bran can take control of Viserion and force him to crash land into the ground, or Daenerys can kill him with Drogon. I tend to believe that Drogon will kill Viserion for symbolic reasons mostly. As I've said before, Drogon was named after Dany's first husband, Khal Drogo, and Viserion was named after Dany's brother, Viserys. Since Khal Drogo killed Viserys, then I think Drogon may be the one to kill Viserion. When that happens, Viserion will most likely slam into the ground just like he did the first time when he died, only this time he will have the Night King riding on his back. When the dragon comes falling out of the sky, this should bring all of the fighting to a standstill, just like it did when Viserion died beyond the wall. That didn't just cause Jon and everyone else to watch in complete shock, but the Whites also stopped at the same time. When the Night King comes crashing into the ground on Viserion, this should cause all of the Whites to stop fighting, because it might be the first time that the Night King has taken some actual damage. Now it's not going to kill him, but it will give Jon just enough time for him to do one final thing before he challenges the Night King to a sword fight. As everyone is watching the dragon hit the ground, waiting to see what the Night King does next, I think this is when Melisandre can approach Jon and possibly say something to him to trigger a certain response. When Jon and Melisandre last spoke, Jon told Melisandre to never return to the north, but Melisandre had one last piece of advice for Jon before she left. She told Jon, "You know the Night King is coming. You have seen the army of the dead, and you know I can help you win this war." Melisandre said she can help him defeat the Night King, but she never said how she can help him. Well, what is Melisandre known for doing? Whenever she wants to help someone, she typically needs to sacrifice someone in order to do so. Jon basically told her if she ever came back to the north, she would die, and Melisandre said she could help him defeat the Night King. Well, how about we kill 2 birds with 1 stone? In order for Melisandre to help Jon defeat the Night King, she must perform one final sacrifice, and that is the ultimate sacrifice, which means Melisandre must give her own life in order to do so. For those of you that don't know, I made a theory video where I explained why I believe Melisandre is actually Nissa Nissa, and I believe Jon will stab her through the heart to create the burning red sword of heroes known as Lightbringer. Now I know what some of you may be thinking, how will the sword catch on fire just by plunging it into Melisandre's chest? In my opinion, there are a ton of clues that suggest Melisandre is Nissa Nissa, but I will just briefly go over some of them, in case you haven't watched my theory video. I believe one of the first big clues is one of the main symbols that is directly connected to Melisandre. Ever since Melisandre was introduced, we have seen her banners quite a few times, and on her banners is an actual burning heart. This represents Melisandre's heart in my opinion. It is her flag after all, and once you plunge a sword in her chest, that sword will absolutely catch on fire, because Melisandre's heart is on fire. Another reason why I know this is because we have been told that Melisandre has a fire burning inside of her. Even when Melisandre is at Castle Black, Jon could touch Melisandre's skin and it was always very warm to the touch. She could actually walk around the wall with wearing nothing but a dress, yet somehow she was never cold. That's because Melisandre has a fire burning inside of her, just like her banner represents. Now, one of my favorite clues is when Jon actually smells Melisandre. When I noticed this clue, it absolutely blew my mind because it made so much sense. When Jon and Melisandre are riding in the elevator cage up to the top of the wall, Jon can smell Melisandre, and it reminds him of only one thing, and that is Mycon's forge. Now, what do we know is always inside of a forge? Swords and fire. Melisandre smells like a freaking red-hot iron sword. Do you know what that means? Melisandre quite literally smells like a burning sword. She doesn't just smell like fire. She smells like a sword dipped in fire. That is a very specific smell. Now, why the hell would Melisandre smell like that unless they were trying to tell us something? Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but it doesn't get any clearer to me. Not to mention, Melisandre told Jon what they could create together. When Melisandre was trying to seduce Jon at Castle Black, she said, "With us joining, we can create light." Now, what does she mean by creating light? I think that could be a reference to Lightbringer. So, as Viserion is slamming into the ground, this will give Melisandre one last opportunity to assist Jon in stopping the Night King for good. Even though Melisandre has arrived to help Jon, he already made it clear that she would die if she ever returned. When she approaches Jon in this moment, I think she will say something that will trigger Jon to plunge his sword right into her chest. This might even be a suicide mission for Melisandre. She may already know what she needs to do. After all, she did say she would return to Westeros one last time, and that she would die in this country, so perhaps she already has seen her fate in the flames. Now, in order for Jon to fulfill the prophecy, Melisandre is going to have to get Jon to stab her, which is why I think she might say something that would trigger a response from Jon like that. I'm not sure what it is, but you can fill in the blanks with your own imagination. Once Jon's sword does ignite and Melisandre falls to the ground, we will see the Night King get off of the dead dragon or up off of the ground, then pull his own ice sword off of his back. It's gonna feel like time has completely frozen in that moment. Everyone will be standing in place. You're gonna be able to hear a pin drop as Jon and the Night King look into each other's eyes from across the battlefield, knowing that this fight will end with one of them dead. The fate of the entire realm hangs in the balance. Now, as you all know, I'm not a writer, so I'm not even gonna try to attempt to describe this sword fight. I imagine it will be epic, or at least I hope so. I'm sure the Night King will kick Jon's ass for several minutes to the point that it looks like Jon is going to die, but if Jon has Lightbringer, which I think he will, then you can bet your ass that the Night King is going to go down. The King of Winter will fall where winter has fell before. This is also why a Stark must always remain in Winterfell. But if you want to know more details about why I think the Night King will fall in Winterfell, check out the video down below. I know some people have a problem with the Night King getting defeated in this episode of the season, but to me, it does seem like this is the direction the show is heading in. Just by reading all the reports and knowing which episodes Miguel Sapochnik is directing, it appears as if the battle against the Night King will take place in the 3rd episode, while the battle for the Iron Throne will take place in the 5th episode. We will learn some more information about the Night King and the White Walkers, but I highly doubt that they're going to reveal everything in Game of Thrones. They wanted to continue this story for as long as possible, and I think that's the main reason why the first prequel show is about the Long Night. Just look at the description of the new prequel show. It says we will learn the true origin of the White Walkers. That tells me we haven't been told the whole truth or the full story in Game of Thrones. So just keep that in mind as we head into the final season, but then again, these are just my opinions. Let me know what you think will happen by the end of the episode. Anyways, I want to thank everyone for watching the video, and I also want to thank all of my supporters on Patreon for supporting this channel. Have a great day, everyone. I will see you again very soon. Bye.